Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. At first it seemed that this day was no different from the previous ones. The morning began as usual. Lisa got up. Barely had the clock struck the hour. 9 was not early morning, but it was still a long way from noon. The sun was just shining unpleasantly, illuminating the spacious room, shining through the wide panoramic window, across from where her and Leo's bed stood. Lisa stretched sweetly, smiling at the new day. Her spouse had already left. Lisa didn't find the usual rollers. Thank God, the girl thought to herself. Spoiling such a beautiful morning was the last thing she wanted to do. Lisa put her feet down on the floor and got out of bed. On the way to the bathroom, she pulled on a silk robe, given to her by one of her relatives on her wedding day, and went to do the usual morning routine. In the bathroom, she looked at herself in the mirror, still as young and beautiful with long brown hair framing her neck. The crisp oval of her face contrasted with her bright green eyes. They were the ones Lisa was most proud of. But the bruise she had received a couple of days ago did not want to go away, even though it was less noticeable. Lisa gently touched the purple spot under Leo's eye. It still hurt. It would heal the next one before the wedding. She grinned at her own reflection and started washing her face. The entire morning makeup took her a little over an hour of three-step grooming. Light makeup. Don't forget to cover the bruise with a stick. Styling. At 11:30, Lisa was already sitting in the dining room, about to start breakfast, when suddenly the phone rang. It was Maria, her best friend. 5 years ago, she was the one she moved to LA with in search of a better life. Had she found that life, or had the whole move been a huge mistake? Lisa still wasn't sure. "Hello," Lisa answered, taking a sip of fresh coffee. "What are your plans for the day?" Maria immediately blurted out, and judging by the sounds in the background, her day was already in full swing. Which is unlikely. Or is it not over yet? Not hello, not goodbye, laughed Lisa. "Maria, that's what you're all about. Let me remember. I have a massage at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I'm off to get my nails done. Oh God, don't tell me you're going to that studio again. This is the worst service I've ever seen in my life. There's another circus. No, I'm going to a real salon this time. It's not too far from your Eden, by the way. Wow, now it's my Eden. You're so full of shit. You're a friend." Maria laughed out loud into the phone. "I think the masseur is coming to the house. Then I'll rush to you, and then together we'll go to make you beautiful. That asshole just stopped by work. David never paid me back for the last shift. But I'll see you all later." Before Lisa could answer, Maria had already hung up. And so always a laugh, she thought, and took another sip of her morning coffee. Maria was the only person who still made Lisa happy in this gloomy city. It had nothing to do with Lay, though. She just had to blame her troubles on something so that she wouldn't feel so horrible. "I think you're just making a big deal out of it," her mom told her. On one of those rare occasions when Lisa could honestly tell her how unhappy she was, she really had nothing to complain about. At first glance, Lisa had been born and lived her entire life in a small town. By the age of 16, the girl had a clear understanding that there was nothing to catch here. And already then, at the end of school, she began to plan a future move. She studied hard for her exams to get into LA. But her scores were still not enough even to secure a place in the lousy university. Lisa's ambition had diminished, and she was already preparing to go to Carolina. Maria, a school friend of Lisa's with whom they shared a desk, came to her rescue. Maria was the kind of person who is often called crazy, a straight A student who instead of textbooks usually chose to walk until morning with her high school friends. But she had what Lisa sorely lacked in courage and a certain recklessness. In short, someone like her was willing to do anything. Maria knew about the plans to move to LA and volunteered to go with her as soon as she heard about it. And if Elisa had been preparing the ground for the move, trying to ensure that she would be able to live in a dormitory and continue her studies, Maria just had to want it. and then it would sort itself out. So when Lisa grimly informed her friend that she was abandoning her plans, Maria was furious. "What's wrong with your university exams? You don't give up your studies. Lie is for other things, you know. That's where they go to study, but to make a life for themselves. So put your feet up, pack your bags, and let's go." "I don't want to hear a word. Carolina, I'm getting tickets for the next flight. We're leaving tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and you don't have money for a ticket. Forget it. I got a little bit of joy for my high school diploma. Enough for 2. A month of hiking around the pole, and then we'll find a daddy." Lisa was always a little jealous of Maria. Her parents were well off enough to let their daughter fly to La, even if only for a month. Lisa, on the other hand, lived only with her mother, who could barely make ends meet to support herself and her daughter. Her father, as is usually the case, vaporized as soon as he learned of the pregnancy. Her mother didn't file for child support, so she had to support her daughter on her own. Lisa was always sewing things for the grown-up daughters of her neighbors, and about new fashionable clothes, in which Maria usually appeared, and did not dream. Maria lived in a 2-story private house in a nice neighborhood in Lisa's town. She lived in a 1-room apartment that hadn't been renovated for a long time. All this combined with broken dreams of a big city and a better life influenced the usually sensible and serious Lisa to agree to her friend's crazy plan. 5 years have passed since that summer. Since then, Lisa has never returned to her hometown. It had been hard at first. They were really going through the motions, and not even for 1 month. Finding a job was not so easy. Almost everywhere young girls from the provinces were treated like fresh meat. They were lured into dubious bars and clubs. Lisa knew what such a job was like. Behind the innocuous offer of a job as a hostess in a restaurant, there was another job for elite clients. Lisa wasn't ready for that, which is more than I can say for my good friends. That's the juice. That's where the money is. It's a piece of cake. Charm, get her drunk, make money with her face and figure. That's what it's all about. That's the kind of guy you should be looking for. One of them is your ticket to a happy and trouble-free life. But Lisa was adamant. She didn't like this kind of work at all. Eden. That was the name of the club, where Maria finally got a job. It's a tasteless name. Can't argue with that. The pay wasn't great, especially for LA, but the tips from the customers were generous. After working for a couple of months, Maria gained the trust of the manager David and persuaded him to take over from the waitress Lisa, so to speak, with a favor. Lisa was paid much less per shift than all the other girls, at least because she did not allow herself to socialize, and certainly not planted in the company of tipsy rich people in the hope of snatching something. If I'm going to get my hands dirty, it's only in the kitchen. The girl decided for herself. It was during one of these night shifts that she met Leo. Leo immediately noticed Lisa, modest and quiet. She was very different from the other female employees. Ridiculously to customers, she didn't offer to brighten her company's evening. She simply did her job, reacting to the men's solicitation with a slight smile. That night, he left Lisa a decent tip, and after that, he regularly stopped by the club just to admire her modest, silent beauty once more. Lisa had never liked men much older than her, especially if they were old enough to be her father or even her grandfather. Lisa was 19 at the time. Leo was 57. She called him exclusively by his first name and middle name, as it was indicated on his club card. Leo and the man took pleasure in noting this detail at every interaction with her. After a couple months of such visits and short conversations about nothing, he asked Lisa out on a date. At first, she was taken aback by his proposal and began to explain that she did not provide escort services. What did the other girls do? But Leo hastened to reassure her. "Honey, it's just dinner at a restaurant. Take tomorrow off. I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. We'll spend the evening somewhere away from all this fuss." Lisa blushed a little. She said she'd think about it and hurried to the staff room. Maria was there, and Lisa immediately jumped on her friend. "Maria, what do we do? Leo wants to go to the restaurant. I'll say no. David will make a fuss. The friend agrees. Maria was cheered up. He's been coming here for 2 months. He's got his eye on you. We have to start somewhere. Start? What? Confused, Lisa asked. And then she realized the look on her friend's face. You're crazy. Maria, you know I'm not like that. Yes, you are. That's fucking what it is. Pouted her lips. Maria pretended not to hear. I'll tell you this, Lisa. You'd have to be a big fool to talk about the speaker. Leo, he shakes hands with half of the local oligarchs, and the other half is afraid to even make a peep in his presence. A very important person. And by the way, he's still quite an attractive man for his age. He divorced his wife 2 years ago. The girls said every girl in here tried to fix him up since then, but he wouldn't budge. There was even a rumor that he was hot, but not for girls anyway. Anyone here would have threatened to stab you in the throat if they knew he was asking you out on a date, and you were still turning your nose up at him. Lisa looked at her friend incredulously, but she couldn't find anything to say. What to say? Maria, meanwhile, continued. Listen, well, if he is you just absolutely nothing, and his delicately, but not here and not in front of everyone. Go with him to a restaurant for clients like Leo. Insulting him in public is not an option at all. Lisa realized that her friend was right. Returning to the table where Leo was sitting, she said that his offer was very flattering to her, and she would be happy to keep him company in the coming evenings. Leo smiled contentedly and handed Lisa 2 $5,000 bills. Here you go, sweetheart. You're especially good tonight. We'll spend it on myself tomorrow. I want you to be in a good mood when I arrive. Lisa hadn't noticed it at the time, but now she understood. Leo had seen her from the beginning as a commodity for which he was paying for a beautiful, comfortable doll. Out of reflection on the past of the Great One, the doorbell rang out. Insistent and restless, only one person could torment the doorbell like that. Maria Lisa joyfully stretched out her arms towards her friend and hugged her tightly. It's good to see you. You forgot about the masses so quickly. I got a ride from his driver, Maxim. That was the name of one of Maria's several regular lovers. Like Leo, he lived in an upscale neighborhood. So tell me, how are you? Demanding, Maria threw off her shoes and headed for the living room. Maria was wearing a short, dark green dress. Her hair was a little frayed. Her makeup had obviously not been changed since yesterday. Lisa turned out to be right asleep. Her friend hadn't even gone to bed yet. Lisa started to tell Maria. The latest news was delicately silent about another bruise on his face. No need to stir up a hornet's nest and upset my friend once again. What about you? How? Well, you didn't come here for nothing. Guess who's flying to LA tonight? Maria asked snidely, and without waiting for an answer, exclaimed Mark. Mark, Maria's older brother. When the girls were in 7th grade, and Lisa came to visit Maria for the first time, 11th grader, Mark smiled welcomingly at his sister's friend. And with that smile began Lisa's agonizing first crush. She constantly found excuses to drop by Maria's house after school, and even if Mark and Lisa's interactions were limited to a friendly hello, that was enough for her. Of course, 17-year-old Mark didn't notice Lisa at all. At the time, a gap of 4 years was very significant, and Mark was more concerned with feminine high schoolers than with the skinny and angular little sister's friend. Nevertheless, he treated the elite no worse than his own sister and constantly remarked that this friendship was a very good influence on Maria. And then, a year later, Mark graduated and moved to NY. Lisa continued to love him from a distance, but pretty soon her attention turned to more reaching and goals. She started to grow up, and boys started asking her out. On dates, she never got into a serious relationship at school. In that respect, Leo was her first man. So when Lisa heard that Mark was coming over, she broke out in a cold sweat. She never realized whether it was from joy or, on the contrary, from fear. It seemed to be a mixture of all her feelings at once. Lisa could hardly squeeze out a smile, but she still looked confused. Wow, this is very unexpected. He's coming to visit. Yeah. He said he's staying for a week in that apartment James is renting from me. And another Maria lover. I'll take the time off at my club. Maria rolled her eyes mockingly at those words. You do remember that Mark must never find out who exactly I work for. Of course, Lisa nodded. Maria's family thought she made a living solely from her organizational skills. He arrives at 7, Maria continued. I'll be at Eden in time to pick up David's money. Then I'll be at the airport in a flash. I think we'll be home by 9 o'clock. We'll drink something strong. Sit down. Lisa nodded briefly. She looked very confused. But Maria didn't notice it. How could it be? Thought the girl. We haven't seen each other for such a long time. He's already 27. I wonder what he does. Does he have a girlfriend or a wife? All the time while Maria was going on and on about the next rich clients club, Lisa couldn't stop thinking about Mark. Of course it was silly. It had been years. Back then, he'd been just her goofy teenage crush. And now she was already a married woman. But the whole thing kept her on her toes one way or another. And Lisa pondered in confusion about how tonight would go. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, after a massage session, the friends set off for the center. Lisa trimmed Maria's hair and went for a manicure. What are we going to do? Asked the master, carefully, looking at Lisa's nails, something romantic. As if in a fog, Lisa replied, let's be specific. We have several shades of pink, a special line of bedazzled shades. Look at this, a very beautiful milky color. The master handed Lisa a whole bunch of warmth. And the girl poked without looking at the first color she saw. This will do. After the manicure, Lisa asked the salon administrator to book her in for styling and makeup. If she was going to meet Mark after all these years, she had to be as prepared as possible. By 8 o'clock, Lisa was already in full dress. She ordered a cab and waited nervously for her private driver. Leo didn't have one. Leo felt that his wife did not need one. He didn't let Lisa do much of all, which often made her feel as if she lived in a golden cage. But the gold cage was not for her, but for Leo's status and ego. At 9:18, Lisa stood at the front door of the house where Maria lived. She took a deep breath, dialed the number of apartment 174, and waited for the answer. From the speakers came the ringing voice of her friend. Who is it? Do you know? Open up. A long beep followed. The door clicked open, and Lisa stepped inside. She called the elevator. 23rd floor. Before opening the door to Maria's apartment, she gathered her thoughts, took the handle of the door, and was about to pull it open, when suddenly she saw that someone was helping her from the other side. And we were already wondering if you were lost there, with a smile, said someone with a low velvet voice. Lisa looked up, and her green eyes met his piercing blue ones, as if she had been electrocuted. Yes, that's exactly how it had been that first time she had seen Mark. Against all the river's fears, the evening was going well. There was no awkwardness or shyness. Lisa had long since grown out of the age when talking to a guy she liked, her blush and cheeks treacherously trembled, and her voice trembled in reverse. Already after 15 minutes she had loosened up, and her communication with Mark was more like a meeting of old friends. Can I get you another drink? Mark obligingly inquired, lingering over a bottle of red. Yes, thank you. Charming. Lisa smiled and held out her glass to him. The moment Mark took the glass, for just a moment, their fingers made contact, and Lisa felt her cheeks flush. Ring. Mark looked with interest at the thin strand of white gold on her ring finger. So you're married. I can't believe you never told me. Maria jumped in. Lisa is now the wife of the millionaire Leo. I've heard of him. An important man. Lisa smiled embarrassedly. Oh yes, we met at a club. We dated for a year, and then he asked me to marry him. Lisa tried to close the subject quickly on a night like this. The last thing she wanted to do was bring up her hated husband. But Maria wouldn't stop. We dated for a year. You should have seen what kind of meetings they were. Then for her one whole restaurant, we'll rent a restaurant. Then on a weekend to Paris with her on a private plane, but for a clean breakfast. A view of the Eiffel Tower. You know, Lisa's modest. How long has she lived in his 3-story mansion? Still the same. With these words, Maria filled his glass. I paired it with a sip. Maria, you're already drunk, laughed nervously Lisa and looked at Mark. Unlike the girl, he was not smiling. In his eyes and reflected steel blue ice. Come on, show him the pictures. How did you go to Bali and the Maldives in Italy? What was your wedding like? Jealous of everything. Maria cheerfully patted his friend on the shoulder, and Lisa didn't want to. Took out her latest model phone and started showing Mark pictures with her husband, blushing as she opened the folder of photos. The moment she created it, she named the folder My Wreath. However, it's been over a year since she went into that folder at all. And even now, I can barely fight the urge to delete those photos, just to avoid the circus. Lisa opened the first photos of their pictures from the restaurant. The first date, the very same date that Lisa was about to open the business. Lisa back then still didn't look as gorgeous as she does now. A modest black dress with a simple silver chain around her neck, bought somewhere on sale. It had all been bought with the tip Leo had left her at the club the day before. But she was holding a gorgeous bouquet of scarlet roses. Lisa remembered when they had taken that photo. As Leo had promised, by 8:30, his black auto driver had picked her up. Leo himself was not in the car. The driver explained that Leo was still in a meeting, but that he would be there on time, and he wasn't lying. 8 o'clock sharp. When the car arrived at the restaurant, Leo met her at the entrance, obligingly took her under the arm, and escorted her to a table with a gorgeous view of the waterfront. Leo found it hard to keep her excitement at bay. She wanted to say that it was all a big mistake and that she was not interested in him as a man. But the man wouldn't let her say a word. Just one evening, darling, that's all I ask. Vilisaya agreed. To the girl's surprise, the evening went well. They quickly found a common language. And soon the difference in age and social status was no longer an embarrassment to Elisa. When dinner was over, they talked about art and modern artists for at least an hour. And then, when the waiter came to them with a bouquet of roses and handed them to Lisa, Leo stood up and kissed her hand in a gentlemanly manner. Lisa, you're an absolutely enchanting girl. I was very happy to share this evening with you. Leo, thank you. It's mutual. Please, call me Leo. You're not my secretary. You're not a waitress. Okay, Leo. Lisa smiled at him. At that moment, she completely forgot about her intention to sew it. My driver has already arrived. Get in the car. He'll take you home. I'll stay a little longer. I have some business to take care of here. It was nice to meet you. I hope to do it again tonight. Leo looked meaningfully at Lisa. Lisa was heading for the car when she suddenly turned around and said in a hooligan way, You know, Leo, why I love modern art. It's everywhere. Van Gogh painted at least 40 self-portraits. That's how many self-portraits any average girl takes with her phone camera every day. How about making your mark in art? Right now, with those words, she approached the man with her phone outstretched in her hands. They stood side by side with a smile and looked into the camera. Then Lisa turned to Leo and said almost in a whisper, You're wonderful. Thank you for this evening. Memories overwhelmed the lyricist. She didn't even notice how tears rolled down from her eyes. That's when she really fell in love. She was sure that Leo was the best man she had ever met. Suddenly, she felt guilty. What is she doing? Sitting late at night in her friend's apartment in the company of her brother, the one she had flirted with 100 years ago. Drinking with her husband, the one she had fallen so completely in love with that night at the restaurant. Lisa kept flipping through the pictures and showing Mark and her and Leo pictures from their travels. Europe and Asia, posh hotels and lavish restaurants. It's all a merry-go-round. It was brought by the family of my eyes. To the rapturous sighs of her friend, Mark looked tense, but still with attention, and looked at each photo. Lisa, you look absolutely marvelous. Not the ugly duckling you were in 7th grade. You bet I am. Maria confirmed it. Money can do wonders for anyone. Although Lisa became a beautiful swan by the end of high school, it's just that even then, she had her NY. Lisa smiled shiftingly and glanced at her phone. On the screen was a photo of her standing in an embrace with Leo against the ocean. She's wearing a long summer dress with a dark blue swimsuit visible from underneath. Leo was lightly transported back to that day. They were vacationing in the Maldives. Lisa had bought this swimsuit, especially for the trip to their mini vacation, showed this day and Leo. He was eternally busy and hardly looked at the girl. They were already living together, although they weren't married yet. Leo was rarely with her, usually went to business meetings or to his office, and at home he disappeared into his office. So when Lisa walked in wearing her new swimsuit, he only hurriedly escorted her out the door. "Why don't you get out of my way? Already on vacation." He finally noticed her bathing outfit as she was getting ready for a walk on the beach. "What are you gonna go in that? At least you have some kind of cape on the outside." "Leo, it's a swimsuit, not a burqa. I'm here to sunbathe and swim. I'm not exaggerating." But Leo kept nagging, "And I don't want men looking at you. You're my woman, not some passing tourist. You have to look dignified. And what's not dignified about my appearance?" Lisa burst into flames. "I'm not going to discuss it with you. Did you hear me? Odense looks no better than any of those girls in your club." With these words, Leo left the room, leaving Lisa alone. She stood there for a few minutes looking at herself in the mirror, then opened her closet, pulled out a floor-length, slim shave dress, and put it on over the top. The rest of the day was going well. The hot rays of the sun warmed the lovers affectionately. True, on any trip, there were always the three of them. Vitaly's personal driver and Leo's bodyguard accompanied him everywhere. "It's dangerous for a man like me to appear in public without a bodyguard." Grinning, he explained to Lisa one day. That day it was Vitaly who took their picture. In fact, no matter what picture Leo and Lisa took of the two of them, she could say with certainty that it was him on the other side of the lens. That gloomy and stingy man. Maria waved his hand in front of Lisa's eyes, snapping her out of her memories. "I'm asking you how much the wedding was for." The news said 5 million, but that's the tabloids. "I don't know myself," Lisa answered honestly. As far as finances were concerned, Leo never reported to her. In fact, it soon became clear that he was a very private person. The guilt of tonight began to recede as her irritation with her husband grew. As you'd expect, Maria had gained very quickly, plus a sleepless night, and the girl was already sweetly slouched in the chair. He brought a plate and covered his sister, and the conspirator himself with that face winked at Lisa. "Let's go into the kitchen. Let's not disturb Maria. Let's go." They moved into the kitchen and Mark asked Lisa for another drink. Suddenly, there was such fatigue, such sadness that tears came to her eyes. She went to the window so that Mark, who was creating a beautiful still life on the table, would not notice anything. But apparently he sensed her much better than she thought. Something was wrong. She turned quickly, smiled. "No, everything is just fine. I haven't felt this good, this comfortable in a long time." "Yeah. What about your husband? Don't you have romantic evenings when you can just chat?" Lisa sighed. She could tell she spent most evenings alone. If she goes out, she pays for it for a long time, because Leo thinks that a married woman should stay at home and wait for her husband. But why? To make Mark feel sorry for her. She didn't want his pity. Anything but pity. He had been looking at Lisa the whole time, as if she was thinking, and he had no trouble reading her mind. Mark held out her glass. She took it, drank, looked up, and met his eyes again. The only thing Lisa wanted now was to touch Mark, to stroke his cheek with her fingers, to touch his lips. Mark set his and her glass on the table. He reached out hesitantly, and Lisa literally fell into his arms. "Lisa, are you sure?" She didn't answer, just pressed her lips against his. After a while, she quickly scrambled to get ready. Mark asked, "And I take it you can't stay too long?" She shook her head negatively. She was already late and would be very lucky if Leo didn't point that out. She knew what would happen if her husband got angry. Mark got up from the bed and turned her toward him. He scrutinized her face, then asked if it was him. Lisa closed her eyes. Well, of course. The cream wiped it all off a long time ago. Let's not talk about it. Yes, let's do it, Mark. Everything in life has to be paid for, and a beautiful life, including any man pays for it. It's true, everyone pays differently, but you can live not for a beautiful life, but for love, for example. I guess you can. She looked at him sadly. That's life. Mark held her close to him as he said goodbye. Lisa, tell me, will we never see each other again? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'll try. Leo was waiting for her in the living room. But hello, darling. Where were you so late? Leo, you've already eaten at Maria's house. You're late. I can smell it on you. How many times do I have to tell you? If you can't break up with your girlfriend, at least don't drink with her. Lisa sensed from her voice that the storm might be over. She went over to Leo, sat down in front of him. Don't swear, please. He smiled and slapped her sharply across the face. Leo. Immediately, she received another punch. The next day, Maria called. Hi. What are you doing? Nothing. Just a friend. What's wrong with your voice? It's fine. And I can hear you. Well, if you don't want to talk, don't talk. Here's the thing. It's my brother. Anyway, he told me to tell you that he'll be waiting for you in the park in an hour, but I just told him to tell you. Anyway, I think he's still in you. Don't do anything stupid. You realize you're a millionaire's wife now. Maria disconnected and hung up. She sat down on the couch and thought, what does she have now? A nice car, a cool house, a lot of stuff, a position. Is she afraid of losing it? Yesterday she would have said yes, but today she didn't know. Lisa looked at her watch. It was 40 minutes before the appointed time. She jumped up. She had to clean herself up, put some makeup on the bruise. The old one hadn't completely gone away. And then the new one arrived. 30 minutes later, she's running out of the house. She'll tell Mark it's not right. She's married, and he's only here for a few days. It's not right, and she'll leave right away. But when she saw Mark, she forgot all the prepared phrases. Mark, Lisa, listen to me carefully. Let's go away. Let's go to my place. Listen, no one will find us. We can be happy. No, Mark, she's coming. You don't know what he's like. He won't forgive such an offense. Lisa, I can't do it without you. I can't, you know. And I can't do it without you. It was completely crazy. Lisa realized that with Leo's possibilities, they wouldn't be able to enjoy happiness for long anyway. No, she didn't think he'd find her and kill her. But she left her husband a note, grabbed some things, and rushed out of the house. She stopped on the threshold, pulled the ring off her finger, and carefully placed it on the note. Stared at it and sighed. Went to the door. Mark was waiting for her not far from the gate. It was okay. Fear gripped Lisa. But Mark was there for her, and that's what mattered. The car drove farther and farther away from the big city, and Lisa stared in horror in front of her. What had she done? Leo would never forgive her for what she had done, and she would have to answer not only to her, but to Mark as well. It was as if he could feel everything that was going on inside her. She gave him a one-armed hug. It's gonna be okay. You'll see. Mark, when we get there, file for a divorce. What are you doing? He'll find us. Mark laughed. Lisa, that's ridiculous. It's not the Stone Age. Of course, it's not pleasant. But I don't think your husband is stupid to start a fight over a woman. No, I don't think so. Lisa didn't know what to think. She knew what would happen if her husband got angry. Mark got up from the bed and turned her toward him. He scrutinized her face, then asked if it was him. Lisa closed her eyes. Well, of course. The cream wiped it all off a long time ago. Let's not talk about it. Yes, let's do it, Mark. Everything in life has to be paid for, and a beautiful life, including any man pays for it. It's true. Everyone pays differently. But you can live not for a beautiful life, but for love, for example. I guess you can. She looked at him sadly. That's life. Mark held her close to him as he said goodbye. Lisa, tell me, will we never see each other again? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'll try. Leo was waiting for her in the living room. But hello, darling. Where were you so late? Leo, you've already eaten at Maria's house. You're late. I can smell it on you. How many times do I have to tell you? If you can't break up with your girlfriend, at least don't drink with her. Lisa sensed from her voice that the storm might be over. She went over to Leo, sat down in front of him. Don't swear, please. He smiled and slapped her sharply across the face. Leo. Immediately, she received another punch. The next day, Maria called. Hi. What are you doing? Nothing. Just a friend. What's wrong with your voice? It's fine. And I can hear you. Well, if you don't want to talk, don't talk. Here's the thing. It's my brother. Anyway, he told me to tell you that he'll be waiting for you in the park in an hour, but I just told him to tell you. Anyway, I think he's still in you. Don't do anything stupid. You realize you're a millionaire's wife now. Maria disconnected and hung up. She sat down on the couch and thought, what does she have now? A nice car, a cool house, a lot of stuff, a position. Is she afraid of losing it? Yesterday she would have said yes, but today she didn't know. Lisa looked at her watch. It was 40 minutes before the appointed time. She jumped up. She had to clean herself up, put some makeup on the bruise. The old one hadn't completely gone away. And then the new one arrived. 30 minutes later, she's running out of the house. She'll tell Mark it's not right. She's married, and he's only here for a few days. It's not right, and she'll leave right away. But when she saw Mark, she forgot all the prepared phrases. Mark, Lisa, listen to me carefully. Let's go away. Let's go to my place. Listen, no one will find us. We can be happy. No, Mark, she's coming. You don't know what he's like. He won't forgive such an offense. Lisa, I can't do it without you. I can't, you know. And I can't do it without you. It was completely crazy. Lisa realized that with Leo's possibilities, they wouldn't be able to enjoy happiness for long anyway. No, she didn't think he'd find her and kill her. But she left her husband a note, grabbed some things, and rushed out of the house. She stopped on the threshold, pulled the ring off her finger, and carefully placed it on the note. Stared at it and sighed. Went to the door. Mark was waiting for her not far from the gate. It was okay. Fear gripped Lisa. But Mark was there for her, and that's what mattered. The car drove farther and farther away from the big city, and Lisa stared in horror in front of her. What had she done? Leo would never forgive her for what she had done, and she would have to answer not only to her, but to Mark as well. It was as if he could feel everything that was going on inside her. She gave him a one-armed hug. It's gonna be okay. You'll see. Mark, when we get there, file for a divorce. What are you doing? He'll find us. Mark laughed. Lisa, that's ridiculous. It's not the Stone Age. Of course, it's not pleasant. But I don't think your husband is stupid to start a fight over a woman. No, I don't think so. Lisa didn't know what to think. On the one hand, Mark was right. On the other, she knew Leo too well. If he bought something, it would belong to him at all costs. Mark had a small apartment. It was about 20 times smaller than the house she'd lived in before. But Lisa loved it. She had Mark by her side. That's the most important thing. I have to go tomorrow morning to file the divorce papers. Lisa stood still for a moment. Then she nodded with her mouth full of put-offs. It still had to be decided. In the morning, they went to file the papers. The woman told them that if Lisa Leo's husband didn't mind, the whole procedure could be done remotely. That is, they wouldn't even have to meet. Surprisingly, Lisa Leo agreed. It was all a bit strange and even a bit hurtful. A month later, they were divorced. Now it was possible to build a new life. However, life was not as simple as it had been before. Mark's vacation was over, and he went to work. Lisa was alone all day long. She sat in front of the TV, cooking, cleaning, and waiting for Mark. It was boring, but it was worth it. 2 months later, they were quietly married. No one was invited, but Maria came. Yeah, your friend made a mess of things. Leo flew to my place the same night. To be honest, I thought it was the last day of my life. Maria, I'm sorry. Come on, love and all that. Just tell me, don't you feel sorry for everything you had? It took you so long to get here. It's like a lucky ticket. Lisa looked at her friend thoughtfully. No, Marin, it's not. Of course, Lisa was being a little wry. It would have been much better if Mark and Leo had just switched places, but it doesn't work that way. Maria left 2 days later, and while Lisa was glad, she breathed a sigh of relief. Maria, though she was her friend, was a past life story that Lisa really wanted to forget. Lisa decided that it was time for her to get a job. Mark looked at her strangely. I'm sure you're sure it's not that, but I don't feel right. It's not like you haven't been working. Lisa smiled and hugged Mark. Let's not go back to the way things were. Things are different now. 20 years passed. Mark sat at his desk in his office. He was looking at the weather outside the window. It was raining for the 3rd day, and there was no clearing in the sky. Tomorrow was the anniversary of Lisa's death. He would definitely go to see her. In fact, he was the only one who went to the cemetery before Mariinka. God, he had been thinking all this time that if it hadn't been for him, Lisa would be alive and well. Memories flashed painfully. How could he have thought then that Lisa had really traded him for a more conventional life? How could he have thought such a thing? Lisa didn't come back from her walk. It was a little strange, because when he came home from work, she always made sure to be around. Mark looked out the window, but the girl was still gone. He was about to go looking for her. The phone rang in the hallway. Hello. Mark, it's me, Lisa. What's wrong? Where are you? I thought you were at the park. Yes, Mark, I was in the park. Lisa sounded hysterical, and I'm not going back. I've realized this is not the life for me. You see, I'm used to money. I don't like being poor. Lisa, Mark, don't try to find me. I've decided to go back to my husband. But I'm your husband, Mark. Goodbye. He heard Lisa crying, but didn't have time to say anything. She hung up. He almost lost his mind. Then he just couldn't understand what was wrong. Mark drove to the town where Lisa used to live. He knocked on the gate of Leo's house and screamed for Lisa. The last thing he remembered was the gate opening, and 2 guards came out to him. He woke up in the hospital. She was next to him. Lisa. The girl stood up. Mark, please forget me. Don't try to change anything. And I realized I liked this life a lot more. He couldn't catch her gaze. She wouldn't look at him. Lisa left, and he forgot. Something prickled in his arm, and he fell into oblivion. The next time he woke up, a crying Maria was sitting next to him. Brother, please go away. Go away and don't come back. Lisa chose. She made her choice. 2 weeks later, he left. As soon as he could stay on his feet, he left. A year passed. He was awakened early one morning by a phone call. The morgue called. Lisa, your wife. No. Yes, but man or no man. They'd never divorced. Yes. You need to come in for a lineup. What lineup? What are you talking about? Your wife was in a car accident. She crashed outside of town. You need to come to the lineup. Mark's legs are starting to feel woozy. Lisa can't be. What was she doing here? She was on her way to see him. How so? It was easy. All she had was her passport. They said someone cut her off on the highway, but nobody knew anything about it. Mark tried to contact Leo, but was sent a private detective who was just starting to appear. He couldn't find out anything and very quickly returned his money with the word sorry, but I'm not going to pursue this case. Mark went out to the waiting room. Jenna, order me some flowers for tomorrow. Have them brought home in the morning. Okay, Mark with the black ribbon. Yes, Jenna. That's right. I'm not coming back tonight. Okay, I get it. The clinic called. I know, I'm on my way there now. Mark lifted his collar and stepped into the damp. What the hell is this weather? It's a familiar road. He'd been going to the clinic once a week for almost a year now. Mark, good afternoon. Hello. How is she today? Not so aggressive. There was a spike yesterday. Mark sighed. He hadn't seen Maria in a long time. Thought that since she did not turn to him for anything, it means that she is doing well. Communication was limited to birthday and New Year's greetings. Then Maria stopped answering the phone. It was very strange, considering that now everyone always has a phone in their pocket. Mark went looking for her in that most hated city. He found her. When he saw what his sister had become, he was shocked, to say the least. Had to tie her up to bring her to this clinic. It didn't matter how much the clinic cost him. It was important that it wasn't all for nothing. 3 months ago, Maria had convinced him that she was completely healthy. She was so right about everything, she thanked him. And even though the doctors had convinced him it was all a lie, he believed it, and took her home. She ran away the first night. He looked for her for a week, and when he found her, he realized that 9 months of treatment had all been for nothing. He wouldn't make that mistake again. You called? Yes, we wanted you to agree to a change of treatment regimen. Mark sighed and followed the doctor into his office. To be honest, he didn't believe that Maria would ever return to human form again. Mark, will you get me out of here? Maria, you know everything. I don't want to hear it. She jumped up. This is my private life, and you have no right to order it. You're wrong. Since your parents are gone, I'm in charge of you. Mark, I'm not a little girl anymore. I can decide for myself what I can and can't do. Maria, you have no home and no family. Maria laughed. And you're all decent and caring and proper. What do you have? Mark was silent. Basically, that's right. He doesn't have a family either. But why don't you say anything? You couldn't arrange your life, and you're trying to change mine. Why would I want a life like this? Do you or do you not know that things never work out the way a person wants them to? Never. Maria, what Maria? You spend 20 years mourning a man who just wiped your feet. You say the wrong thing. Maria laughed some kind of sick laugh. Did you really think that after all that money, Lisa could live with you? No. Money rules the world. Money, lies, betrayal. Maria was getting hysterical. Let me out, let me go. You have no right to keep me here like a prisoner. Mark stood up. Maria, you don't understand. It's for your own good. She caught up with him already at the door. You're a monster. I hate you. Do you understand? I hate you. Mark left the room and closed the door behind him. Every meeting was like the last. You didn't even have to show up. In the morning, the doorbell rang. Flowers had arrived. Mark packed up and drove to the cemetery. There were beggars at the gate, as usual. He tried to ignore them always, except for one day a year. Mark took out the small money he had specially taken on that day and began to distribute it to the beggars. One girl with a noticeably prominent belly stood a little to the side. Mark could see her eyes were frightened. The girl was so thin that she seemed transparent, also pregnant. What were they thinking? Mark walked up to her. The girl backed away fearfully. Don't be afraid. Here, take this. He held out some bills to her. The girl hesitated for a few seconds, then took the bills. Thank you. Mark looked at her carefully once more. For this one, 1719. No more than that. And clearly a victim. Though anything could be, unhappy love is very simply stupidity. It would be nice to ask her, see if there's anything I can do to help. But then his cell phone registered in his pocket. He turned away from her for just a few seconds, and when he finished talking to her, the girl was gone. He didn't have time to look for her, and he didn't want to. Jenna, his secretary, called. They had an emergency and Mark urgently needed to go to the office. Mark took a quick step toward the back of the cemetery, approaching the monument with the photo. Lisa was looking at him. She was smiling. This picture had been taken in the park by a street photographer. In that brief, very happy time, he bent down to put the flowers and froze. At the foot of the monument were live flowers, very fresh. They had been put there today or yesterday. Strange. Except for him, no one comes to the grave of parents. Lisa was not in this world for a long time. Who could it be? No, Leo is now in his late 80s or more, if he's even still alive. And the flowers are mostly wildflowers. He wouldn't have put those in. But I didn't have time to think. I can't sit with you tonight. I'll come back in a few days. He put his flowers next to the ones that were already there and walked quickly to the exit. The work had consumed him so much that for a week he didn't even remember his promise to Lisa. When the problems were finally solved, Mark decided to go to the cemetery. He had been dreaming about Lisa the last few nights. It was as if she wanted to tell him something, but she couldn't. Either she was afraid or she just couldn't. Mark realized that if she said something, a lot of things would become clear. But she was silent, only looking at him with huge eyes full of tears. The man got into the car. Why, in fact, not to try again? Why hadn't he spent all 20 years trying to find out anything about Lisa? It didn't work then. But there's a lot more possibilities now. And it's been a long time. Leo doesn't have the power he had back then. I think Mark would be a notch higher now. Yeah, for 20 years, he's tried not to think about what happened back then. His beloved was gone, and it had blown all his wishes out of proportion. But he knew it wasn't that simple. Mark walked resolutely toward his office. Svetochka looked at him in surprise. He'd warned her he wouldn't show up until lunchtime. Jenna, get the head of security to me. Good morning, Mark. He stopped suddenly. Jenna had been working with him for over 5 years, and he'd never even asked if she had a family, children. How old was she? A little younger, 35. It doesn't make any sense. She always looked perfect. Jenna, do you have a family? The woman blushed sharply, but quickly pulled herself together. No, I used to. Then I got divorced. No children. Why are you so beautiful? There was no one who wanted to. She shrugged. It takes feelings to start a family, too. He looked at her in surprise. It turns out that Jenna is not such a robot. He came into the office, and a minute later, Benjamin was standing in front of him. Mark had met him on the street. He wasn't at his best then, wrinkled. Not exactly sober. Angry Mark never liked people who liked to drink. But there was something in the guy's eyes. He didn't know why he was sitting on the bench. We got to talking. Turns out Benjamin's life was an adventure. Everything was fine. Benjamin returned from the army, got married, had a daughter. After the army, he went to work for the police and enrolled in training. Benjamin wanted to be an investigator, and he became one. But not for long. The second or third case became fatal. And the case was an attack on a girl by a rich scumbag. Benjamin was offered money, but he refused, and then he was threatened. Benjamin was young and believed in justice. He didn't think the threats could be real. He put the scumbag in jail, and the next day his wife and daughter were hit by a car right in his yard. Daughter died on the spot. Wife ended up in the hospital. She never came back to him from the hospital. All she said was, "Did you get what you wanted? You wanted justice. Take this." He resigned from the organs and made a few odd jobs. He didn't want to live. Mark invited him to work for him at his own risk, first as a simple security guard. And 2 years later, when he became fully confident in him, he made him head of security. Mark made one more step, which was not typical for him. He tracked down Benjamin's wife. They had a very long talk. Mark told her his story. He listened to her. He didn't ask for anything. Only when he was about to leave, he said, "If there were more people like you, Benjamin, the world would be a much cleaner and fairer place." A week later, the woman met Benjamin. They were happy now. A son had been born to them. Mark knew that Benjamin went to the cemetery almost every day. The guilt he felt for his daughter never left him. Mark was summoned. "Come in, Benjamin. How many times have I asked you not to call me by my middle name when we're alone? I'm sorry. I can't get over it right away." "So what happened?" Benjamin sat down at the table, looked at Mark. "Benjamin, remember I told you about Lisa?" "Of course I remember. I want you to try to find everything that happened to her during the year she was away from me. I want to get to the bottom of why she left and why I crashed on her in my town. And here, I realize it's been years, but that's the kind of request I have." Benjamin nodded. "I understand. I'll do what I can." "How soon?" "Benjamin, as well as possible. I can go, yes." He followed Benjamin out. Svetochka was typing something. She looked at him questioningly, but Mark went towards the exit. A strange feeling came over him. Maybe because he was sure of Benjamin. Benjamin, he was like a good dog. He would pick up the trail and not lose it, which meant he'd know something soon enough. Or maybe it was because he was having these weird dreams. Mark stopped the car's cemetery gate, looked around at the beggars who, as usual, were sitting there. The very pregnant girl, was nowhere to be found. Mark sighed. Should he not have asked her if she needed help then? Some kind of guilt sat inside. All this time the beggars had been throwing themselves at him, and he was pretty well known around here. He turned to the woman who appeared to be the oldest of the beggars. "Say, there was a girl here with you a week ago who was pregnant." "Well, there was. Not ours, she came. And she didn't get one just because they're pot-bellied." "Where is she now?" "I don't know. She comes here a lot, but she's not here all the time. Maybe in town, maybe somewhere else. Last time she was here." "What am I, keeping tabs or something?" Mark pulled some papers out of his wallet. The woman snatched them up and said she turned up this morning and disappeared. Someone else added, "So she shows up here every day and she's gone. So maybe she lives in the cemetery." Could be. Mark got along. How desperate do you have to be to live in a cemetery? But these people could be wrong. He walked down the familiar path. Today was his free day, and he would be able to sit with Lisa, talk longer. Suddenly, Mark stopped and froze at the grave of his wife, sat on her knees. The girl was the very one he was now asking about. The girl didn't notice him. She just sat there looking intently at the picture of Lisa. Now Mark realized why he couldn't forget about this girl. She looked just like Lisa. No, it wasn't the same face, but now he realized that the resemblance was still a big one. He took a step toward the grave, and the girl flinched, turned around, and jumped up. "Don't be afraid. Don't be frightened, please. I didn't hurt you." He walked over and stopped too close not to approach, so as not to frighten the girl completely. "Tell me, is there anything I can do to help you?" She shook her head. "No, I don't need anything." Mark thought he was a complete idiot. But what was he saying? "This woman, she's a relative of yours." Familiar. The girl sat down on the bench. It was obvious that it was hard for her to stand. Suddenly, she started crying. "I think it's my mom. Only I won't be able to recognize anything now." Mark was feverish. "Mom?" "Yes, but I don't know exactly." Mark felt like the ground beneath his feet was shaking. He tried to pull himself together. He had to get his thoughts together. Mark wanted to ask the girl why she thought Lisa was her mother, but at that moment the girl cried out and clutched her stomach. Her face twisted. "You're not well." Mark rushed forward, managing to pick up the girl who started to fall. "Help me." And she lost consciousness. Mark picked her up in his arms and ran to the exit of the cemetery. The homeless people gave him perplexed looks, and when he put the girl in his car and sank from his seat, the woman he was talking to said he'd nailed her, didn't he? Mark was flying around town and calling the hospital at the same time. When he flew up, the porch, doctors and nurses were already waiting. The doctors, barely glancing at the girl, pronounced tramp or something. Mark freaked out. "I brought this girl in. She should be in a room and getting the best treatment you all here are capable of. And I was, understandably, expletives. The doctor nodded apprehensively and began to give orders. The girl was carefully moved onto a gurney and almost jogged to somewhere along the corridor. Mark sat down. He needed to calm down and think about everything. Just what to think about he just didn't understand. He was sure the girl was confused. Maybe she had been misled. Lisa didn't have children. He would know if that was suddenly the case. On the other hand, he hadn't seen her in a year. Anything could happen in a year. Hours. 2 hours later, the doctor came out to see him. You're still here. That's good. These are the papers, girls. She's very malnourished. But there's nothing wrong with the baby. If there's no improvement, we'll do a C-section. You can go now. She won't wake up until tomorrow anyway. Doctors, what do you need? You tell me. I'll get the medicine. What kind? Bring her clothes, hygiene products. She needs them badly. She doesn't need any medication yet and worry. Mark got in the car. He had his passport in his hand, with a piece of paper sticking out of it. He opened the passport. Nancy. Mark's mind went blank. He looked at the date of birth. For a long time, he tried to calculate something in his mind, but he couldn't do it. He snatched the phone in frustration. When he got the result, he said, "It's yours." Could be. It looked like the girl had been born 6 months after Lisa had left him. He unfolded the sheet. It was a birth certificate. Lisa's mother, father, him. Though since they were married at that point, it was understandable that he was automatically listed as the father. But 6 months, was Lisa pregnant when she left him? No way. She couldn't be that pregnant. What if Leo intimidated her? The thought had crossed his mind before, but he dismissed it. Because Lisa was alone in his hospital, or someone was waiting for her. All this thinking gave Mark a headache. What to do? But first, he'd have to buy everything he needed. Just what is that? Well, what it is. Mark took out his cell phone again. Jenna, can you help me? Sure, Mark. What do you need to do? Half an hour later, they arrived at the store. Jenna didn't seem surprised. She listened carefully to Mark and asked, "Size?" Seeing his bewilderment, she smiled slightly. "Well, at least roughly. Maybe there are girls here that size." Mark turned around, then said, "Over there, saleswoman, orders only from the girl on whom you have to buy everything belly. She's pregnant." Jenna nodded and walked ahead of him. It was his first time acting in such a role. The girl next to them, Jenna's saleswoman, walked along, took some item off the rack, looked at the size, then showed it to him. He nodded, and she handed it to the saleswoman. Sometimes he wrinkled his nose when he didn't like a color, for example, and Jenna smilingly hung things back up in the lingerie department. He didn't go. "Jenna, but you're on your own there." Okay, sure." He went back to the hospital a few hours later. The doctor greeted him very well that you came. "The girl's awake. She's very nervous. You need to talk to her. But understand, she can't be sedated right now." Mark turned in confusion to Jenna, who had come with him. She was looking at him calmly. He grinned to himself. Why not talk? I mean, he could do anything too. He could handle this kind of negotiation. Couldn't handle a young, scared girl. Jenna interpreted his look correctly and smiled slightly. "Maybe I'll come with you." "Jenna, I would be very grateful to you." They followed the doctor into the room. Nancy was sitting on the bed, tangled in the blankets. A nurse stood next to her. "What are you so worried about? Your clothes will be brought to you now. Only if you don't want to hurt your baby, you can't leave." Nancy saw the doctor and Mark. "You're the one who brought me here." "Yeah, you passed out." "What kind of hospital is this?" "It's a private clinic, a maternity clinic, a clinic for pregnant women." "Shouldn't you be so worried?" "Give me my clothes back." Mark put a large bag on the floor in front of the girl. "Here are the essentials. I beg you, don't think anything bad. I just want to help you." Why? What could he possibly say to her now? because he's her father. So he wasn't sure of anything himself, and he was saved by a phone call. I'm sorry, he grabbed the phone. It was Benjamin. Mark, where are you? I have something to tell you. I'm at the clinic on Sovetskaya. You can come here. Yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Mark turned to Nastya. I have to go out for a bit. Jenna took him by the elbow. You go ahead. Nastya and I are going to unpack, take a shower and powder our noses. He was relieved to be out of the room. We should write out a bonus for the light. He'd known before that she was very smart, very efficient, but she was also very human. Benjamin arrived a few minutes later. Mark, let me start with the most important thing. Do you have a daughter? Mark sat down on the bench. Well, I already realized that, or rather suspected it. Anyway, tell me what else is new. In short, your wife left you unwillingly. Somehow Leo found out about the pregnancy and promised if she didn't come back, he wouldn't let the baby live. So he promised her that she would lose the child. I understand he had a lot of power at the time. Yes, he did. Mark rubbed his face with his hands. He could have guessed it himself. Lisa couldn't just give him up like that. Was it resentment or the realization that he couldn't fight Leo anyway? Anyway, after the baby girl was born, Lisa thought of running away, running to you. She knew she wasn't gonna get away with it. Her ex-husband was completely out of his mind about her. She took the child at night to an old woman who worked in their garden. The woman had to hide the girl until she got to you. The thing is, your wife wasn't sure she could reach you before she was grabbed. Like this woman says, Lisa, she was gonna tell you about her daughter so you'd come get her. And run back, or only let you know about her when things had calmed down a bit. By the way, she's sure she was cut off on the road by Leo. Lisa was an inexperienced driver. So many years. And then what happened to the girl? When she was about 5 years old, she was taken away from the woman by child welfare authorities. She got sick, and one of the neighbors reported that the child was hungry, so they took her away. But the woman came to see her, visited her. She was the one who told the girl. She told her everything, where she was buried. The mother said that maybe her father lived there too, but that was over a year ago. Since then, no one else knows anything about the girl. She's here. Benjamin looked at him in surprise and did not understand. Here in the maternity ward. Yes, I found her in the cemetery. I didn't recognize her at first, of course. How could I recognize her if I didn't know her at all? In for a braid. The girl was in her pajamas, a robe thrown on top, fuzzy slippers on her feet. She looked so much fresher. Jenna smiled. Well, we're ready. Nancy, we need to have a very serious talk. The girl nodded and stared at him fearfully. Jenna wanted to leave, but Mark waved his hand. Jenna, stay, you'll find out everything anyway. The woman looked at him strangely, but sat down in the chair. Nancy and I are your mother's Lisa's husband. Do you know about that? The girl nodded. Mark stretched out in surprise. Wait, maybe you know about the fact that I'm probably your father too. Svidavad. Nancy calmly said yes, and I know about that too. You have my papers. He pulled out her papers, handed them to her. She pulled the old cover off her passport, and a picture fell out of it. A picture of him and Lisa all in the same park. But why didn't you find me? Why didn't you say anything? The girl shrugged. I wanted to, but when I found out what you were, what you had. Anyway, I figured you'd think I was a liar and a money hunter. Mark shook his head. That's probably exactly what would have happened. Not only would he not believe it, but he'd tell her to chase her away. Right. One more question, then. Who's the father? He nodded at Nancy's belly. She flared up. It doesn't make any difference. You're wrong. It does matter. Nancy lowered her head. After the orphanage, I met a guy. He's nice, really. But one day he got into a fight. Got into it with two assholes. Bullied an old lady, took away her bag and scattered all the contents. She was crawling on her knees. They picked it up again for Pete. Anyway, he kicked their asses and helped his grandmother. and they put him in jail. That's when I came looking for you. Oh, Nancy, what kind of life is this? The girl lowered her head sullenly. Mark stood up and walked over to her. If you'll let me, I'll help you. I realize I haven't been there for you all these years, but I didn't know. I didn't even suspect. Nancy reached out and hugged him and cried. Jenna turned away to the window and wiped her tears as well. They didn't leave her until evening. Mark stood for a while, then turned to Jenna. I realize this is going to sound strange, but I'm so thirsty. Jenna won't keep me company. She looked at him in amazement, then waved her hand. Now it was Mac's turn to be surprised, but he was glad. Today had somehow brought them closer together. Where to? Pick a restaurant. Mark, let's not go to a restaurant. I can cook something, but honestly, I'd like some quiet. So much to do today. The store, then. Right. I have good wine at home, but we'll go to my place. And I have a wonderful cognac, but you'll still be cooking. Jenna laughed. Only if you help. It's a deal. Mark hadn't felt so wonderful in a long time. Everything was right the way it should be. And it's kind of peaceful. Of course, there's a lot more to come, but he could handle it now. Jenna quickly stuck the meat in the oven, then cut up the salad and made sandwiches. Mark watched in amazement as more and more dishes appeared on the table. Well, Jenna, I see you have a lot of talent, and I'm not going to the restaurant anymore. I'll call you. She looked at him strangely, but didn't say anything, just smiled. They were getting gray. When Jenna was about to go home from the family, and Mark hugged her, maybe you'll stay. She was well aware that in the morning it would be different. Not like this at all, but she had loved him for so long, and Jenna had stayed. She left early in the morning while Mark slept so as not to embarrass him. In the morning, Mark was at work on time, barely glanced at Jenna. Good morning. Good morning, Mark. Is Benjamin expecting you? Yes, thank you. Have him come in 5 minutes and invite Peter to come to me at once. Let him come with Benjamin. He opened the office door, but stopped for a second. Why did you leave? Jenna was embarrassed. And I didn't want you to. For you to have to ask me to leave. Mark turned to her. What made you think I would do that? She remained confusedly silent. Mark shook his head and walked into the office. 10 minutes later, Benjamin and their lawyer, Peter, were sitting at his desk. I'll start with the most urgent. Peter, there's a young man, decent, but from what I understand, a very simple one he's hit. He served 2 on a drunken son of a bitch, and he's been jailed. What are the chances of getting him out of jail? The elderly man thought for a moment, then asked, what ways do we use? All kinds. Then the chances are good. Mark turned to Benjamin. You must find out all about Peter. Peter is the father of Nancy's baby. If it's exactly as Nancy says, we contact Peter and get him out right away. No expense spared. Everything must be done quickly. The men were writing something down. Benjamin, how do you finish with Peter? I need all the information on Leo. Everything he's breathing right now. What he's doing. You can't do that, Mark. He passed away yesterday. Mark smiled wickedly. There's the dog. Well, all right. Then if you can dig me out the man who was driving the car of the very car that cut Lisa off. Mark. Benjamin. And I said find him. You don't have to tell me anything. We're clear, right? Then get back to work. I'm gonna need you a lot right now, aren't I? After everyone left, Mark called the clinic. How Maria refuses to eat. She's been lying there for 3 days, staring at the wall. I'll come and get her for a while. But Mark, then we have no responsibility. You're so not responsible. You can't accomplish anything in a year, but you charge a lot of money. But Mark wouldn't listen to excuses. He passed out. Maria was lying on the bed. She didn't react when he came in. Maria, we need to talk. She didn't move. Then Mark continued, I want you to come with me now, and I'll introduce you to someone. Unless you want to stay with us. As you realize without any of that, then you can leave, and I won't keep you any longer." She slowly sat up on the bed. There was a sparkle in Maria's eyes. "You'll take me away from here, but please don't run away until you meet someone." Maria suddenly grinned. "You've switched to women, or on psychics." He looked at her in surprise, then said, "No, Marin. It's just that there is a man who needs not only me, but you as well." She looked at him in surprise, thinking it was some kind of joke. But a nurse came in and brought Maria's things. "Get dressed. I'll wait in the hallway." Maria came out 5 minutes later. She had a confused look on her face. They got in the car and drove off. She was gazing into the houses of the street, smiling like a child. And Mark's conscience suddenly pricked. Maybe he really should have gone easy on her, or else he'd locked her in a golden prison. The cars stopped. "This is a hospital. As you can see, to me, it's a hospital for people who are expecting a baby. You don't seem to need one." She looked at him in surprise. "Why did we go here then?" They walked down the corridor. Mark knocked on the door. Yes. He opened the door and they went in. "Hello, Nancy." "Hello." "Hello, Dad." Maria leaned against the wall so she wouldn't fall. "Listen, Marin, you can see it's not Lisa, can't you?" "I understand." "No, I don't understand anything. It's my daughter, mine, and Lisa's very long stories. I'll tell you all about it later, if you want. In the meantime, let's familiarize ourselves. Nancy, this is your great-aunt, Maria." "Maria, are you so beautiful?" Nancy sighed in admiration. Maria rushed over to her and hugged her. "God, baby, it's so good to have you. How good is it that we have someone?" Maria practically never left Nancy's side. They had become friends so quickly that Mark sometimes felt superfluous. But he didn't take offense. There was too much to do. One evening when he and Maria were at home, his sister asked Mark who Peter was. "Why do you ask?" Nancy didn't cry at all. "I didn't feel comfortable asking him. She's not supposed to be upset. I understand that's the baby's father. Yes, he's the one in prison." "He's in prison." "No, he's kind of normal. It's just the way things are. Benjamin will find out, and then we can think about something." Maria grinned wickedly. Well, Benjamin would find out. No matter how many times she ran away, no matter where she hid, Benjamin always found her. She hated him with a fierce hatred, though she realized now that she should have been grateful to him. Nastya was a week away from giving birth. Benjamin had been waiting for him since morning. "Mark, here's a guy who's basically innocent, except for breaking my nose. Only one needed two. Great, that Peter. Oh, our grandfather developed such an activity pulled from the capital of the best lawyer there on their behalf. The judge who is hearing the case almost fainted. The case has already been reviewed. If it's all right, we can make this thing go away quickly. Benjamin, we need it fast." "I get it. We'll do it." Mark decided that Nancy and the baby would be better off with him for a while. And then maybe she'd want to stay. Maria will always help with the baby. He's got plenty of room. Everything seemed fine. Everything seemed wonderful. But there was a tugging inside. He hadn't seen Jenna for 2 days. In her place sat a young girl. Her name was Anna. And she sometimes gave Jenna days off. Jenna used to always warn him, although he had been so busy the last few days that maybe she just hadn't had time, hadn't caught him. He went out to the waiting room. "Anna, Jenna, when will she be back?" The girl jumped up. "I don't know. She's quit her job." Mark looked at Anna in amazement. "Quit her job how? Why am I not in the know?" Anna flapped her eyelashes fearfully and prepared to cry. "I don't know, Zoya Stepanovna. Betty dealt with personnel, hired and fired people. It's not unusual for someone to quit, and Mark doesn't know about it. But not in this case. Mark was called in. Why did Jenna quit? I don't know. Said it was a personal matter. What kind of personal matter? Mark, she wouldn't say anything. So her woman looked in the folder she brought with her. Then she wrote something on a piece of paper, handed it to him. I can go. Yes, she went out into the waiting room. Anna looked at her questioningly. The woman whispered, "He's completely out of his mind, screaming like a madman. I've never seen him like that." She nodded her head in agreement. The door opened. Mark came out. Betty quickly disappeared out the door. "I'm not going to be here tonight." "Good, Mark," not looking at him like a rabbit at a boa constrictor. Mark wanted to say something else, but waved his hand, and the girl sighed in relief. Mark stood in front of the door. Jenna had a huge bouquet of roses in her hands. He stood there not knowing what he was going to say to her. Finally, he made up his mind, reached out and pressed the bell. The door opened almost immediately. Jenna looked at him with huge eyes. "Alas, and you won't be able to get rid of me." And Mark stepped inside. They were awakened in the night by the bell. "Mark, where are you?" "Nancy's in labor." He and his entourage got ready in 5 minutes, and 20 minutes later, they were already at the hospital. Maria was running down the corridor, giving the nurses a hard time. "I'm begging you, go and find out." "Maria, everything's fine. The doctor's already swearing at you." "What is it?" "Poor girl, alone in there." "What are you talking to her for?" "Doctor." Nurse midwife Maria rushed to them. "Mark, do something." He put his arm around his sister. "It's going to be all right. You realize it can't be anything bad now." Maria looked at Jenna with interest, but did not ask anything. 2 hours later, the doctor came out to see them. "Oh, I see there's more waiting." Maria almost screamed. "No." Finally, the doctor looked at her with a smile. "Why do you do that? Such a beautiful, charming woman." Swearing. Maria was embarrassed, as it had been a long time since anyone had complimented her. "Your little girl is a little princess. I haven't seen such beautiful children for a long time. Mommy's tired. She's not quite strong enough yet, but she's done well with the girl. It's all right." Mark smiled stupidly. "What's that supposed to mean? Am I a grandfather?" Everyone laughed. Maria had been impossible to catch the last few days. Mark tracked her movements by text message from the bank. A children's store, a furniture store, a children's store again, a pharmacy. Things were going crazy at home. But Mark, to be honest, had believed in Maria long ago, when she was very young. She was reckless, but if she took on anything. Nancy Mark came home early the night before she was discharged. It's weird. It's quiet. Just 2 women scrubbing the floors. Maria's sister looked out of the room. They'd decided to set up for Nancy. "Oh, Mark, come here." He went into the room. Jenna was there too. She was hanging the curtains. Wow. The room bore little resemblance to the room it had been a short time ago. The new big bed is small, more like a throne for princess toys, baby furniture. "That's quite a show. You like it?" Maria's happy, smiling. "Jenna and I went shopping today, and I noticed Mark smiled. Look at what we bought." Maria opened Mark's dresser and pulled out a dress the size of a doll and some knitted boots. "Are you sure this will fit?" Did the women laugh? "No, it's just that everything is so small." They laughed even louder. Nancy looked at her daughter with a smile. "My beautiful girl, you're a real beauty." The little girl slept peacefully in her pink lace. Sometimes in her sleep, she wrinkled her lips. Grandfather and Maria tried. The girl, as in a cloud of lace, was on Nastya's beautiful, fashionable dress. "Now you and I will be fine." Nancy wanted to take her daughter, but the nurse beat her to it. "I'll take her. You'll have plenty of time to get around, although you have so many nannies." Nancy wasn't used to not being alone, not having to be afraid of anything, not having to think about anything. She had never felt so strange. The door opened, and she saw a whole crowd of people. Jenna's dad, Maria, a man with a wife, and a small child. I think his name is Benjamin. Grandma Natalia. Papa even brought her. She's the one she lived with when she was little. Tears came to Nancy's eyes. Mark accepted the nurses. The little girl peeked through the lace. "She is so small, so very small, beautiful what?" Nancy felt tears running down her cheeks. "What are you doing? Oh, come on. All the bad things are over, I promise you." No one noticed the car stopped in front of the entrance. There aren't many cars around here. Peter and a young guy got out. Peter said something to the guy and pointed at their company. The guy stared for a while, then his eyebrows went up. Nancy, the girl, twitched and slowly turned around. Peter, he ran over and picked her up in his arms and cuddled up to her. Mark watched them with a smile. Finally, the boy set her on the ground. "Nancy, what about Peter?" But then Mark intervened. "Well, Peter, it's probably time you met someone." Peter took a bold step towards him. "That's mine. Yours, take it." Mark carefully transferred the ornate piece to the frightened lad's hand. And at that moment, the girl smiled. She smiled, what a beautiful smile. For about 5 minutes, everyone stood in silence because Peter turned away and tried to wipe away his tears. Then he turned to Mark again, looked straight into his eyes. "Thank you very much. Thank you. And I promise you that you will never once regret what you've done for me for us." Nancy hugged Mark. "Dad, it's you. It's all you. You're the best Mark for Margot." Well, he didn't have to cry now. Jenna saved the day. Well, that's enough of this dampness. There's a feast waiting for us at home in honor of the little princess. I took the liberty of inviting one more person. From the door to them walked the same doctor who delivered our baby. Maria blushed, quickly looked at Jenna, and the latter showed her tongue. Mark laughed. He had the most wonderful family, after all. When the daughter came along, so did everyone else. So Nancy isn't just a daughter. She's an angel. Could he ever forgive himself for not being there for her? Maybe he could. He turned around. Someone was missing. Grandma Natalia, as Nancy called her, was chatting passionately with Peter. Mark smiled. "What? Peter's an older man, but he's completely single. Since everyone's getting a little happier today, why not?"